across the country. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois. Congressman, is this the message Democrats should be stressing? Yeah, maybe no Republicans voted for this, but because Democrats were in power, Americans are going to get these checks in the mail.
No, absolutely. And I'll say it's bipartisan, at least in this extent. A lot of Republican American citizens support it. It's got support somewhere between 65 and 70% of the American people. So I'll take that kind of bipartisan support and the realization that the president's going to sign the bill this week. That's enough for me.
Congressman, you were a co-sponsor of the Raise the Wage Act that argued for a $15 minimum wage. So I'm curious your thinking when 7 Democrats and 1 independent in the Senate that caucuses with Democrats, including Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrat who gives the big thumbs down when the amendment for raising the minimum wage came up. How big of an issue is that?
It's a disappointment, but look, this is a good day. The president overall asked for $1.9 trillion and got $1.9 trillion. I do believe there's room to gain on the minimum wage. I'd like to still think we get the 15. We absolutely should and must, but I do think there'll be discussions on a bipartisan basis to advance that to some level in the near future.
Congressman, stay with us for a second because we're also learning a political appointee from the Trump administration has been arrested for taking part in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Federico Klein, a State Department aide at the time of the riot with a top secret level security clearance, has been criminally charged for pushing police officers and entering the Capitol that day. Prosecutors presented images allegedly showing Klein using a police riot shield to wedge open an entrance for rioters. Imagine that, a member of the State Department helping the mob. And the concern is there are other insiders who, even if they didn't storm the barricades, gave aid and comfort and encouragement to those who would and did and might do it again. Listen to what Colorado Democratic Congressman Jason Crow told Anderson.
When I sit back and think about this, what's really sad is that I actually wouldn't be surprised if members of Congress were involved and complicit in some of the riots.
You really wouldn't.
Saw the morning of, I wouldn't be. I just wouldn't be, which, is a sad testament to, the state of affairs in Congress right now, to be honest with you, and the state of affairs in our politics, that there are some depraved people that serve in that chamber with that to this day incite violence and further conspiracy theories and show zero remorse for what happened on January 6th.
It's all the more chilling now that we're getting a look at the more than 1,900-page report that Democratic Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren has put out. It documents the social media postings of Republican members who voted to overturn the election results. 93 pages are devoted to one-time QAnon supporter Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was posting Facebook videos saying, quote, "The only way you get your freedoms back is it's earned with the price of blood." Another 122 pages are dedicated to postings from Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks, who you may remember from this speech right before the riot.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
But the 122 pages on Mo Brooks is nothing compared to the 176 pages for Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar. On January 3rd, just 3 days before the riot, he tweeted, "Patriots, the time is now. Hold the line." And sedition and treason for stealing votes is appropriate. So, Congressman Quigley, you sit on the House Intelligence Committee. Do you expect this investigation to show members of Congress were complicit in helping the rioters?
Look, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's actually a scary time to be there just because, in the past, we knew where the threat was. The threat was from outside. After 9/11, we were worried about terrorist threats from other countries. Now we're worried about it from a domestic basis with cheerleaders and people I sit with in Congress, encouraging them, inciting them beforehand. Now, I'm going to reserve judgment as to individuals' involvement into planning or moving forward this incitement beyond just encouraging them. And I understand the FBI is doing that work. Would I be surprised? No. The investigations will continue. And I do think there'll be a 9/11 type commission. My committee and others will be working on the intelligence failures, and then so much more work as we see that Zoe asks us and instructs us that we need to look at.
What's your reaction to learning a Trump State Department official with a top secret level security clearance was charged with attacking police in this riot?
How could anyone be surprised when the President of the United States has for months encouraged this? After the November election, he was inciting. How could anyone be surprised that his own staff wouldn't take this to heart, right? I walked around the Capitol on the morning of the 6th, and I could see the crowds. I could hear what they were saying. I got back in my office. I saw what the president said, and I said, uh-oh, here they come. It means obviously in that moment, you knew he was inciting them. So obviously the people closest to them, the people who work for the administration, were as likely to be or more likely to be incited as the crowd itself.
The New York Times is reporting that the FBI found a member of the far-right nationalist Proud Boys was in communication with a person associated with the White House in the days just before the January 6th assault on the Capitol, according to a law enforcement official briefed on the investigation. What big questions do you have?
Who else is involved? Who knew? Look, there's a lot of information to sort through. It's going to take some time. But I do believe we need to make sure they have the resources and access to this. One of the things I'm concerned about is the White House, as it was leaving, destroyed evidence along these lines. It's the reason we have to change some of the laws to protect them. But I think we need to make sure that all the intelligence community and the law enforcement communities have the resources they need. At some point, I would like to think these people will start talking and they'll be included, those above them who were involved in this. It is a great concern.
I want you to listen to what Tucker Carlson said last night about the threat from QAnon believers.
You ever notice how all like the scary internet conspiracy theorists, radical QAnon people, when you actually see them on camera or in jail cells, as a lot of them now are, maybe they're kind of confused, maybe they've got the wrong ideas, but they're all kind of gentle people, and they all kind of waving American flags. They like the country. They're not torching Wendy's. They're not looting retail stores. They're not shooting cops. No, that's not them. It's the other people doing that.
They're just gentle people waving American flags, not scary criminals, he says.
You know, having been in the room where it happened, I'd remind him that there are 3 police officers dead, more than 100 injured, and many others as well. A total of 5 were dead. And without the heroism of these police, and frankly, blind luck, it would have been far worse. So, you know, I'd say, Tucker, you can rewrite history all you want, but the facts are still there, and the American people can see them anytime they turn on TV and see these horrible highlights that took place. And the fact that threat is still out there. And by saying it and talking about it in this vein, he's basically giving them carte blanche to say this sort of behavior was okay. He's going to look at it differently after the fact.
You said it's a scary time to be a Congress member. Do you fear personally for your safety?
I guess I can't focus on myself when I'm worried about my colleagues, and I'm worried about staff that work there and people who just, you know, travel to the Hill. I think we need to take care of them first. The report that came out today, this week, is important. It's instructive. We know what we have to do. The fact, when I was sitting in that room when the threat was very obvious, I heard someone say, when does the cavalry get here? We know we need a larger force with better training, better equipment, a fast response force, a fence that's retractable, and we need help in the districts as well. We have to understand that members can't be left alone, given the kinds of threats that we saw there and that are taking place on an ongoing basis. So, look, the report's pretty instructive of what we have to do. It's up to us now to make sure it's implemented.
And you're referencing the report that's supposed to be presented, I believe, on Monday from General Honore, who's taking a look at some of the failures when it came to security. Congressman Mike Quigley, I appreciate your time. Thank you.